women, especially as entrepreneurs or doctors who are growing practices, we never stop sometimes to question where we are now. What do we really want right now? What do we need? What does our soul need right now? And what are the non-negotiables in our life? I think it's really important, because if we've never set up, whether you call them boundaries, non-negotiables, what those are, you put them in your calendar, you really define them, your brain doesn't know necessarily where to stop pushing on that boundary. Well, you can't maintain personal integrity if you've never defined those non-negotiables. And personal integrity leads to everything good long term. So you have to start with, what are those non-negotiables?
Hey guys, welcome to the 10th episode of the Story Project podcast. I am your host, Joanna Scott, and I'm so excited to have with me my friend, Dr. Summer Kassmel, as my guest today. Summer, thank you for joining me in this conversation and just for making the time.
Absolutely. You're just one of my dearest people. I really am grateful to have the opportunity truly to sit with you and get to kind of share in kind of this magic with you. You're truly, what you're doing is so great. I love the inspiration that you're imparting on everyone. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, well, it's an honor completely. I love starting these interviews by talking about how we first met. And I remember specifically meeting you at my first Dental Success Summit, obviously with Mark Costas back in, I think it was 2018.
Okay.
So maybe 2017, but I think it was 2018. And at that time, it feels like has been a minute for sure. My husband, Josh, and I were considering purchasing our own practice and being practice owners. And you were so kind and friendly and just chatted with us about what that endeavor would be like. And we kind of instantly became friends. And then fast forward, we've had the honor of helping you rebrand and create a new website for your dental assisting school in Vail Valley called Vail Valley Dental Assisting School. And you train students there to start their own, to be certified dental assistants. But then the school also has a track for doctors who want to start their own dental assisting school. And we'll dive into how both of those programs work a little bit later. But I just wanted to say how much our team enjoyed working with you on both of those projects. They had a blast.
Yeah. Your team is the best. Actually, like when I was in your organization in Ohio, I was like, I want to live here. like you guys just create, like everything you create. And I tell other people this all the time, everything you create is beautiful, and it is crazy as it sounds, as much as it is a representation of me and what I want. It's like a representation of you and how you see your clients. Like it's the weirdest, like how you guys are able to make something so beautiful, yet so exactly feel like the person, you represent that person. Your space in Ohio was the exact same way. It's like I walked in and I could feel, you and your husband, like I could feel who you were. So you guys have the most amazing instincts at that. And I tell people all the time, like, that really is kind of a gift that you and your husband have to create spaces like that, places like that, and stories like that. So really, it's really cool.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad you had such a good experience, and hopefully we get to work on, who knows, something fun in the future together.
Of course.
Yes.
I know. Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we get into the real heart of this conversation today, I always like to get us, a little icebreaker with some light questions. So tell all of us your favorite vacation spot. And do you enjoy, solo vacations? Do you always bring your kiddos, or what does that look like for you?
So, gosh, I think that's a really tough question to say. I love. I've been to Turkey, Croatia, Italy, and I love those kind of vacations just because it brings history to life. And I love getting to see kind of history being lived out and people walking amongst, ruins and things like that. I really enjoy that. But what's funny is I just got back from a really beautiful vacation to Turks and Caicos with my kids. And I so enjoyed just complete relaxation. And I definitely paid for every convenience possible to make it a true vacation. And like, I think I can deeply appreciate and love both. So sorry that I couldn't choose. um, and then I will say that I love both equally. I love going on solo trips. I have no problem either being by myself or just with, one other person, a friend or something like that. But I also, this trip was just myself and my kiddos, and I equally enjoyed it. For me, it's really just setting no expectations of either. So if I go with my kids, I don't really set an expectation of how it should be. And if I go with someone else, on kind of more of a solo, or even just with myself, I just don't set any expectations of what it should be, I guess. So maybe that helps with me feeling really comfortable with either.
Yeah. Well, all those places you just listed are on my bucket list to go visit. So you're leading the way at finding really cool vacation spots. Good job. Okay. Tell me, I read that you love porch swings and rocking chairs. So I have to hear why, and what is this all about?
Yeah. So, what's funny is when people ask me what my hobbies are, whenever I thought back to like, what are my hobbies? I'm like, it's almost always involving some sort of porch, some sort of rocking chair, or porch swing. Always, all of my favorite memories, all of my favorite pastimes, all of my like favorite conversations involved it. And I don't know if it's the movement, or if it's the silence, or if it's the outdoors, or what happens on porches and with porch swings, but it just always, for me, like evokes the best memories. So I just love what they, for me, kind of represent. So
I love that. Our porch here is probably a little bit too small for a swing, but yeah, it got me thinking maybe I could put something in the back, in our patio. That would be really cool. And probably
it's crazy. Well, and like the minute people, I think, come to a space that they see either, I know it sounds strange, but I feel like it in their mind too evokes a sense of stay a while, like come stay a while. And I love that feeling. I love the feeling of like those rocking chairs. And for me, if I can have like a little fire pit or something like that, it just evokes that sense of stay a while. So I love that.
Okay, I'm going to steal that too. I love that. All right. Last question. What is your favorite personality assessment resource and why? I know you probably have one.
Yeah. So I think for, like what I use like for work, I actually like Criteria Corp to assess capability with personality. I very much appreciate the Colby for sure. I do. Working style. I think that's important. For me, personality test wise, I love the Enneagram. I just love meeting other people who are on different areas of it. So for me personally, I like the Enneagram, but for work stuff, I like Criteria Corp.
I love it. And then remind me, because I'm an Enneagram 8. Are you also an 8, if I remember correctly?
Yeah. We bonded over that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, that's why this relationship makes so much sense.
We don't even have to speak the words. We're like, I know. Yeah.
I think Enneagram 8s they're a force to be reckoned with in all the good ways. And I don't even shy away from that anymore. I champion that. So yes. Welcome to the 8 club, Summer.
Yep. And there's no need to hide. There's no need to try to like make ourselves small. It's who we are. So wear it loud and proud.
Very cool. Before we get into the dentistry side of your story, I want to go back a bit and tell us a little bit about your family, where you grew up. Have you always been based in Colorado or no?
No. So, I actually started out in a small town in Western Kansas called Hayes. And, I didn't grow up on a farm or anything like that. It was a true city. And had a 4-year university there, but the whole population size was around 22,000. So kind of a small town girl in Western Kansas. I grew up there, and I had always traveled to Colorado for trips and hiking trips and things like that. I love the outdoors. And believe it or not, people ask, well, then why did you end up in Colorado? And I was like, I think so much of my life came to fruition out of like my own stubbornness and kind of like spite potentially. I don't know. I joke that I think I became a dentist out of spite sometimes, but I used to just say as a kid, I was like, I love Colorado. Like, I'm going to live in the mountains of Colorado. And so even as a kid, I was just like, I will end up in the mountains of Colorado. And, I did right out of dental school. That's just where I gravitated towards. And I didn't get to start in the mountains because associateships in the mountains are hard to find. But I definitely, within 2 years kind of worked my way to living in the Vail Valley and practicing here. So yeah.
That's awesome. Was there anyone growing up that was a big influence in your life, and kind of what lessons, did you learn from them that you carry with you today?
Yeah. Don't you love, like, what's funny is I'd love to be like, I want to hear who yours were too, but
nope, spotlight's on you today, Summer.
I know. Because I want to hear all about that.
I do.
Later, you can tell me later. Yeah. But it is funny when I look back and think about it, because like first and foremost, it was my mother who was just a force herself. And she just did it incredibly quietly. But I now can see so strongly the decisions she made were always incredibly courageous. And her courage gave me opportunity. And I'll never take that for granted. Because I didn't come from a long line of dentists or anybody who did anything like that. My mother was the first person who went to grad school, went to college when she had a kiddo. Like, she was just really courageous for her circumstances. And then, I had a guidance counselor when I was at my little tiny 4-year university who just championed me, I think, to always my greatest potential, for sure. And I've just decided that when people believe in you and believe more in you than sometimes you even see in yourself, it really is amazing what humans can be, what humans can do. And so this kind of guidance counselor was the guy who just championed me for sure to the highest potential I could be, despite, I think some of my own maybe self-limiting ceilings. He never saw those. So
yeah, gosh, that's amazing. And you are also a mama to 2 beautiful kiddos. Tell us their names, ages, kind of what.
Yeah. So I have Sienna, my daughter, who she'll be turning 15 in June, in June. I was like, yeah, she's almost done with her freshman year of high school. And then I have my son Cash, who is 12, and he is a 6th grader, which means, as you very well know, life is just always filled with, I took my daughter to tennis at 5:30 a.m. this morning. So, so it's always filled with all of that kind of stuff, but so fun, so much fun. So,
yeah. Well, and that's great because your son and my daughter are both 6th graders. And then, so is your daughter, is she a sophomore or is she a freshman?
Freshman. She'll be getting done with her freshman year. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, my son's so I have a sophomore and 6th grader, and wow, it's kind of like, it's all in yep. right now. Mm-hmm. What is your greatest joy being a mother?
Yeah.
You can pick one.
Gosh, that's hard to peg down, but I think getting to see them making really good choices for themselves. Like, I've definitely moved as a mother to more of a coach, I think, too, or maybe like a life coach with them, and helping them to make better choices based on what they want and need versus even looking around to figure out what other people tell them they should want and need. And watching it happen. And it was funny, when I was in Turks and Caicos, I got to spend such amazing time with them, watching their thought processes change over the years to where they really are starting to identify what they want, what they need, and making choices based on that has been, I think, everything I could want for them. especially my daughter, and you and I've had this discussion. It's a little nerve-wracking, but it's incredibly joyful to see them choose things for themselves with sometimes not a blatant disregard to what other people want or other people's feelings, not at all, but just questioning their own internal motivation first and foremost. So,
oh gosh, wow. Well, maybe next podcast we could talk about all of that because wow, there's a lot there we could unpack for sure. What would you say has been maybe your biggest challenge, especially as you have a preteen and teenager and really just navigating all of those sometimes emotional conversations and, just the complexities.
I think, and this is going to sound maybe strange, so I'll try to make it as like clarify if I can, but the biggest challenge with them, and especially at this age, is I have to grow as a human myself to parent them better every step of the way. Mm-hmm. And that can be a challenge because often my natural reaction is, well, this is what you should do. This is what is supposed to happen. Expectations, instead of perhaps me becoming just better myself to be able to better parent through those situations, better coach through those situations. Because I've just truly, and you and I have had this conversation too, of just when I'm better, when I've unpacked my own garbage, when I'm leading myself well, it really does allow my parenting to reflect that. And it becomes conscious parenting versus reactive parenting. And so I think the biggest challenge is I have to constantly work on myself to be better for them. And it can be tiring, sometimes I want to throw caution to the wind and just do whatever I want, which can happen. And that's where self-compassion comes into place. But I just can see such a better long-term joy for my children, joy for myself when I just show up better.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so good and so true. That's interesting. And I won't get off on this. I'll just say something really quickly, but I'm finding that, my daughter has been dealing with just anxiety, depression, and for me, mental health is very important. And mental health gets complicated when it's, when they're in the adolescent years. It really does, because their hormones are raging. They're not really even sure what's going on or why they feel down that day. But I mean, talk about getting better, even as a parent. I mean, I immediately go to my resources and I'm reading, I'm looking at blogs, talking to other parents. How are you navigating this? What are the best questions I can ask that are validating and not judging? You know what I mean? And really get her to trust me as a confidant and that I am a safe place just to listen, So I identify with that, completely. We're such a work in progress as parents, Yeah.
Oh, actually, what's funny is I'm listening to that. I'm like, my heart goes out to you because that is such a stressful moment as a parent.
Yeah.
You want to provide all the right answers, but instead you're like, I have to help her come up with the right answers for her.
Yes.
And like, gosh, what a difficult, I know I'm not supposed to turn this, but I'm like, wow, like that has to be for you. That's such a difficult moment as a mom to have to navigate through, I think. Yeah.
Well, and even just being able to go to listen, this has been probably my biggest challenge, is listening without giving feedback. Because that's, kind of, I think our first inclination as parents, mothers, is we've learned a lot of life. But I want to get to them to the point where they're asking me, or, I'm starting to ask for, hey, do you mind if I share kind of some life experience? Like, can I share an experience that I lived through that taught me a lot? So now I'm digging up all my kind of, just historical like experiences and things that I've been through, my ups and downs through those years, and kind of just using them as basically stories. and to kind of approach it like more of, I mean, yes, we're the story-driven marketing company, but I was like, wow, I think this could work with kids too. Think about it, right? Like when we're vulnerable with our stories and they see, oh, mom and dad, or, their parents aren't perfect, and they can be moved by that and maybe take away something that's applicable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you, being able to create that space where they want to come and be their authentic selves, or start to examine what their authentic self is without the feeling of guilt or shame.
Yes.
Boy, is that can be a tough job, because like you said, our natural inclination is to want to solve things. Yeah. And then even, I don't know about you, but you want to move them away from the pain as fast as possible. Yeah. And sometimes, helping them just, like you were saying, even name what they're feeling or name what they're going through, giving them, just holding that space, which we hear stuff like that, but it's like, I can see so often when really, like you said, really all I can do is just sit in that space with them and let them kind of try to figure it out. But the gift of being able to do that for her is so life-giving long term. It's hard. It's the hardest thing to do right now. Okay. But as she becomes an adult, to be able to utilize these tools that you taught her is going to be invaluable. Right. But it's hard. I mean, I'm sure from you, that's a huge challenge.
Yeah,
so.
Completely. I think it's worth it in the end to let them figure some things out. Right. And, not jump to problem solving their worlds away, because there will be a day where they are out of the house and in college and living life, and they have their own job, and they have to navigate all the things without mom right there, Yeah. It's a lifelong skill. Okay. Wow. Well, definitely going to have you back, because I think we can really create some awesome conversation around that for sure. Let's talk a little bit just about, the dentistry aspect of your life, and tell us, how did you get into dentistry, and kind of the story behind who inspired you?
Yeah. So to go back, I joke that I think I may have became a dentist out of spite, but luckily it worked out. That so I was always, as a kid, like I actually kind of enjoyed going to the dentist, and I was that super weird kid who would be like, hey, can I have a mirror and watch what you're doing? I want to see what's going on. To which my doctor would always his name was Dr. Hook, believe it or not. And he used to get kind of frustrated with me, and I knew it, but I was like, but I just want to see. And I remember I think I was in, I don't know, I was like 10 or 11, and I was like, Dr. Hook, I think I'm going to become a dentist when I grow up. And I kid you not, Joanna, his response was, oh, Summer, don't be a dentist, just marry one. Oh. Well, you don't tell Enneagram 8s this.
No, you don't. You do not.
So I joke, I'm like, I think I may have became a dentist out of spite to him. And then when I was in college, I had a horrible teacher who told me I didn't have what it takes to become a dentist, which I know it sounds crazy, but I'm like, I really firmly believe that God put them in my life for that exact reason. Like, I love it. And always, and like, whenever I'm grateful, I'm like, I am grateful for those two people, because, sometimes you need that little bit of adversity to be like, I'll show you. Yeah. So I do think I became a dentist out of spite, but luckily, like I said, where it's morphed over time has turned in, through many more, adversities and meeting Mark Costas and things like that, it's turned into everything good, everything great. And I get to keep meeting really great people. So.
That is awesome. I love that. You never tell an 8 that, ever.
You don't.
But you know what? 8 will turn it around for something really awesome too. So
Yep.
That's the first time I've heard that. That's amazing. Tell us just, for a minute about your practice in Eagle, Colorado, which actually is, we vacationed near there a couple years ago and had the most amazing bike ride on this trail that goes all the way through, Eagle. And it was magical, literally.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. You should come back. Um, yeah, so, I always tell people, because they don't usually know if I say I'm from Eagle, they don't know what that means. But I'm close to Vail, Colorado, which for people who love to ski, I live in the Vail Valley. And, I started out as an associate actually back in 2004 up here, as an associate in the Eagle location. And I ended up purchasing that practice that I was an associate in 2008. And, for me, dentistry was okay. I know it sounds crazy, but I was good at it. I could do clinical dentistry. I liked the people. But I always found it actually a little, maybe round peg, square hole for me, the true dentistry part. And there was aspects I enjoyed, aspects I didn't, but to be completely honest, I was pretty done and burnt out with it after about 10 years of doing it. It became pretty monotonous, repetitive, and it actually became something that I felt like I couldn't escape. And I love talking to newer dentists just about, I know with their student loans and things like that, sometimes you start to hate the very thing that you worked so hard for. And I found myself in that position. And, what's funny is I remember praying to God that, help me figure out a way out of this. I think I just need to be done. I don't know what I'll do, but help me figure out a way. And what's crazy is, you never know what's going to happen when you pray those prayers. And I ended up getting truly soon thereafter some pretty debilitating back problems that radiated up and down, sciatica and all of this. And after, not dealing with it, of course, for a while, it finally got so bad. A doctor finally figured out that I had severe hip dysplasia in the one hip, in both, but the one was so arthritic. And so everything was so darn messed up in my joint that I could never stand up straight. And after everything was just painful. So I went to a doctor who finally told me, hey, just heads up, to fix this problem, you're probably going to be out of commission for somewhere around 18 months because you're going to be on crutches, wheelchairs, lots of physical therapy, like 5 times a week, multiple surgeries. So just to mentally prepare for this. And what's funny is I'm like, that is not the answer, God, I was thinking that you were going to give me. But what's crazy is I joke I would never give that gift back because everything good has come on the other side of it. Because for me, I didn't dislike dentistry. I had disliked how I had created it. And I didn't even know any other ways out. I didn't even know any other ways of creating that story. Well, there's 1,000,009 ways. And that's, by the way, what I love doing now with doctors is everything's a choice. If you created it, you can uncreate it or create it differently. It's just, you may not even know of the choices. And so, that's then the one practice. Well, after I had done that, had the hip dysplasia, I had to quickly and frantically bring in an associate and I did it horribly and awfully and did not do any of it well. But somehow, with me being able to take a step back and see the practice from kind of 100-foot view, really start to, for the first time in my whole life, run it as a business, look at the numbers, look at the analytics, I actually was able to grow the business bigger without the use of my own hands for all of it. And that became the precipice of finding Mark Costas, finding DSI, and then acquiring, over the last few years, I've acquired 4 offices, and then I merged them into 2 locations. So I now have a location in Eagle that's really 2 practices into one. And then I have one by Avon, which is like Beaver Creek Ski Resort. That's 2 practices merged into one. So I kind of have 2 bigger locations with several doctors and team members. And I always tell doctors, kind of where I am makes sense for my personality. But I never suggest growing for growth's sake. I think it's just figuring out, much like you, what's your story? What are your needs inside? What makes sense for you? And even if it's for the next year, creating that plan, because sometimes it just feels like there's no way out of your current situation. There always is. You just sometimes need help seeing that view. And that's really what I need, is I didn't dislike dentistry. I disliked the story I had created. So.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's intriguing. That's the first time I've heard, like you share it from beginning to where you are now. That's incredible. You mentioned deepest needs. So I have to segue so we can like tackle this conversation, because it's going to be the highlight of what we talk about today. My husband and I are entrepreneurs and business owners, and you and I have been, connecting by phone like once a quarter usually, or a little more often, to talk about all the things, all things personal, professional, our kids, being women, but with a focus on, not losing ourselves in the process of growth, in the process of, success. And our last phone call, we discussed a problem that I want to just kind of, segue and dive into. And you said this, and it really stuck out to me. Every new stage of growth in our business brings with it a new level of complexity in our lives, which obviously impacts us personally and on the home front. And many times, so often, we focus on, navigating the complexities and challenges of handling the growth on the business side, that we kind of neglect or lose ourselves in the process of that. And so specifically, I really want to discuss like both a practical solution and then a mindset solution for navigating times like these. So let's begin by talking, just spending a few moments talking about the practical solutions to thriving when you're in a season of growth. And I will share kind of how Summer and we were connecting on the phone just probably, a few weeks ago. And I was experiencing burnout at the end of the year. And I told her this, and I said, this is becoming a common occurrence for me at the end of every year. As Studio 88 continues to grow, it adds pressure, not all bad, but just pressure, right? And not just in the business, but then that pressure is, we feel that, I feel that on the personal side of things. And last year, I literally felt like I was sprinting to the end of the year, on all fronts. And I had nothing left to give myself, much less, others. And I was beyond fatigued by the time I got, reached the holidays. And you spoke some truth to me about taking the time to figure out my non-negotiables. And I want you to define and, set up for us what a non-negotiable means. What is that?
Well, and I loved that conversation, because I think it's the conversation that more women need to be having. And it's almost like it feels, I don't want to say decadent, but maybe not necessary, when I'm like, I think this is the most necessary conversation, especially in light of us raising, our kiddos. And it's almost like we jump to the conversation, I've decided, of how to have it all before we've ever defined what it all is, what are the non-negotiables, and why do we even want it? And so it's almost like I hear the back end conversation before we've ever done that front end conversation. And so I loved getting that time with you, because it was truly, I love talking through it, because it's so helpful for me. And it's like, women, especially as entrepreneurs or doctors who are growing practices, we never stop sometimes to question where we are now. What do we really want right now? What do we need? What does our soul need right now? And what are the non-negotiables in our life? I think it's really important, because if we've never set up, whether you call them boundaries, non-negotiables, what those are, you put them in your calendar, you really define them, your brain doesn't know necessarily where to stop pushing on that boundary. Well, you can't maintain personal integrity if you've never defined those non-negotiables. And personal integrity leads to everything good long-term. So you have to start with, what are those non-negotiables? And for me, I really define how many hours and I am probably every quarter reanalyzing, how many hours do I want to work, and exactly which entities do I want to work on, and which ones for how much time. So I create truly a calendar of, I only do clinical dentistry, these amount of hours, I'll only do these procedures, and I'll only do it this often. It's non-negotiable. ask my team. Then I set up, okay, I'm going to work on these entities during this time. It's non-negotiable. I'm not going to throw a meeting in there. I'm not going to throw something else in there. I'm only going to do these sort of things at this amount of time. And I structure that Monday through Thursday. I put in, when are my non-negotiables with my kids, which, by the way, you do have to have these conversations with your kids before you ever set them up. And I say, I've read before, and I know you and I've talked about this, of really what does quality time look like for them? Because each of your kiddos has different languages that they speak for what quality time looks like. So sometimes I wanted to set my non-negotiables, but by the way, my kiddos didn't necessarily see them as valuable to them. So I think it's important when you're setting up, non-negotiables is, okay, one of my kiddos is in every sport imaginable. And so it's not theoretically possible for me to make absolutely everything. It just won't work with my schedule and what I want when I say, I want for my work life, I want the result to be this. It doesn't work with me trying to be at every single game. So let's figure out what's the non-negotiable in the middle. And when I talk to my daughter, we lay out with every season, okay, I'm going to make something up, but here's the 12 games. What are the 4 most important that are non-negotiable, Sienna, that I've got to be at because it's going to mean the most to you? And she'll tell me it's this one, this one, this one, and this one. Or she's in the school play. I want you to be at this one and this one. So this is exactly the conversations we have. I put those in my calendar. They're now non-negotiable.
Wow.
So that way I'm speaking her language of what's the most important to you, Sienna, not me. I didn't come at her and say, I'll try to be at everything. Because no. And I'll tell you something really interesting that this just happened to me in Turks and Caicos. So we were sitting at dinner, the 3 of us, and we went around the table and I was discussing with them, let's all discuss what's something that we can see as a potential blind spot or weakness, kiddos, in each other. And what do we see as some of the biggest strengths? And you can list up to 3. It was super fun. One, I wanted to get them used to feedback. And they did it really beautifully and easily, which, by the way, my daughter was, Mommy, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes you listen to people and you'll go, okay. She said, you walk away. You weren't listening, Mommy, because you walked in the wrong direction. And she was like, and sometimes I just watch you do it to see what happens. Yeah. I was like, Sienna, I do that. And I owned it immediately. And I was like, you're absolutely right. Thank you for telling me I'm going to work on that. What she said was one of my biggest strengths. And I found this so edifying, truthfully, was she said, you know what I love, Mom? Is I said, you're really good and disciplined at making the right amount of time for everything. Wow. What? She said, you get up early and I watch how disciplined you are with, you focus on the stuff that you need to do in the morning. Then you do this. She said, and then you always make just the right amount of time for Cash and I, and you make time for the friendships and things that matter to you on the weekends. And she's like, and you structure it and you tell us, and you're really good at that. That's really great, Mom. Isn't it funny that she didn't perceive you missed all my games or you didn't go to all of this? I went to every single game that we made non-negotiable. I was at everything that was non-negotiable. But I think that that's such an important thing is, especially as women entrepreneurs, we move to, I want to have it all, but we've never defined what have it all means. And by the way, is that have it all defined by you or is it defined by society? You have to start there. Define it for you. What does your work life look like? What's non-negotiable there? How much growth? What are you willing to do? What are you willing not to do? Then look at your family. What are you willing to do? What not to do? Then when it comes to spirituality, what do you want? What do you need? What are you willing to do? And what are you not willing to do? And then overall health, what do you really want? And then once you've defined all of that, then you can have the conversations with all the appropriate people. Set the boundaries, set the non-negotiables, and then you've defined what that actually all looks like so your brain can have integrity with it. But often we just jump to here, we get frantic, we're running in circles and we don't even remember why anymore. And it's funny because we always do it for our families. And I'm like, well, how's that working? Do they feel it? Do you feel it? You know, so.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that is literally probably going to be life-changing for me when defining non-negotiables with family and my kids, because my son made like a boys volleyball nationals team. And so our world went from, I mean, Josh and I, we looked at each other and we're like, how are we going to do this? You know, I mean, we already are so busy. His schedule is, I have some travel, he has way more. And we just were like, okay, we'll divide and conquer. We'll go together as a family sometimes. We got through that. But even right now, nationals are done, or, the travel team is done, but now he's in his high school varsity season. And it is like 5 practices a week. The entire weekend is packed full of games. So I've never even allowed myself to consider, what if I'm not there 100%? Because I think I would feel like I failed them. But at the same time, how am I winning and how am I serving, them by being frantic? And all I'm doing is running like it's a rat race. And yes, I check the box. I'm at everything, but am I really there enjoying it? Am I really present? Are they feeling a ton of like, wow, my mom is like peaceful and like, having fun with this? Probably not.
Right. And it does. And that's where too, it's like, it's crazy that, by the way, you even had a moment's pause to think about this, because what I find, and by the way, me too, one of my first reactions kind of to this kind of concept, and I don't remember if it was piecemealed or I don't even know how I fully got to this place, but I know my instant reaction was, well, that's not what a good mom does. A good mom is at everything. A good mom does all of this and she's selfless.
Wow.
Well, wait, says who? By the way, I really was. I had to go through all of this with myself of, wait a minute, is this a lie I'm telling myself? Is this a story? Is this even true? I was like, wait, why do I have to completely live within this paradigm when I don't even know if it's true for myself, for my kids? I don't know. So there may be moms out there right now that are literally wanting to have that moment of, well, no. Well, here's the thing is, I'm not the one to say, by the way, if you can be fully present at absolutely everything and truly feel really good about the amount of work you do, your spirituality, your personal health and your mental health, I love it. That's all a choice. But what I don't love is when women somehow can create language around all of this that makes none of it a choice. It's all a choice. You just get to define the story of which you live in. Yeah. And so going back to define what actually is true. And for my kids, it was all about setting the right expectations and what my teenage daughter saw on the other side of it, which was, like I said, was that conversation of, I love how you prioritize everything. You really do a great job taking care of yourself, mommy. And she saw that. I couldn't believe it. She saw you take time to take care of yourself, which I want her to see. Yeah. You work really hard, but then you're there for Cash and I at exactly these times. But then I also see you prioritize your friends. She got to see, mommy actually works hard at making sure that there's balance that I've defined. And she feels seen and loved in that time, despite that I didn't do the cultural norm of having to be present at absolutely everything, because that didn't matter to her. It was these specific ones that mattered. And it's crazy, I think, for me, that I recognized blowing up that paradigm. I mean, like I said, I joked, I took my daughter to tennis this morning at 5:30 a.m. And I love it because we planned it. We've mapped it out. This is what it means. And this matters to her. So I know that time spent in that dialogue with her, going up and down my valley doing this, she feels seen, heard, and that's a time. So I am joyful in doing it. I mean, as joyful as you can be, I'm sure, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So as we're defining, our non-negotiables, asking even our kids those questions, asking ourselves those questions. What are those things that are so value driven that I want in my life? You had mentioned, you and I talked about the complexities as the complexity in your business, goes up and you're experiencing growth, on any front on the business, any type of growth. You mentioned to me, you said, well, you need to step back and evaluate your support system. And as your business grows, you need to grow a stronger, robust support system at home. What does that look like for you? And how has that, really come alongside you in helping you succeed in living a life based on non-negotiables?
Yeah, this is a really hard mental hurdle for a lot of women to get over, including myself. Women, what's bizarre is if you've ever noticed, a lot of times men, as they get busier, they almost always naturally do this. And society often rises up solutions for them. I'm going to get you an assistant. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure you have this. Sometimes women just aren't even in a position to see that there's solutions around them. And I'm not a feminist necessarily, but I'm just saying, I think men naturally have had that opportunity afforded to them quicker, whereas women are maybe not even aware that as that ceiling of complexity keeps growing, and you've defined, I want to grow in this season of my life for these reasons, and because it'll bring, for me this, which we can kind of talk more about, but you've defined it. So kind of why you're wanting to grow. You've established all the stuff we've talked about before. Well, recognize some of those non-negotiables may get pressed upon if you're not prepared for that future complexity. And so I think it's important to say, really at this point, with the salary you're having, what can you delegate out for? And you can start with something. Mark and I are really big fans of this, of even less than $25 an hour. What can I delegate? And they could do it effectively, or I can teach them to do it effectively. And, I always tell women, like, yes, it is things like people to come and clean your home. But I'll be honest, I'm going to sound probably a slight diva-esque to some people, but I'm like, give me a chance here. But, they can do your laundry. They can wash your sheets. Mm-hmm. They can change over closets for you for seasons. All of package up stuff that you're no longer wanting and help donate it to local charities. By the way, I have somebody do that stuff. I have a whole admin team that over the years, as I've grown the different entities, I have a whole admin team that I know it may sound crazy. People enjoy levels of detail of they help in the hiring process now for the organizations. They onboard people. I know it sounds funny, but like they're what helps me look thoughtful sometimes. Because a lot of times I really do want to be thoughtful. I want to remember every DA holiday and every birthday and every work anniversary. But the bigger we grow, the harder it gets. Well, the thought is really there and the generosity is there. They put into place, bringing flowers to all my DAs in the locations to say happy DA week. We think you're amazing. Right? So they do things like that. They help, with that. Cooking, people who can come in and bring you healthy meals, because if for you, what's really important is being present at, I'm going to make something up, 2 practices every week. So you're not going to have time, that as you're growing at that ceiling of complexity, you're not going to have time. If you want to keep these 2 non-negotiables, well, you might need somebody who can do grocery shopping for you. Or do the Instacart, which drops it off at your door, by the way, which that is me. I do Instacart, dropped off at my door. You might need somebody to do meal planning and truly make it for you. And I have a woman who every Monday just drops off the meals for the week for lunches and dinners right in my fridge. For some people, that's their stress relief. That's their joy, is to be able to do that with their family. Oh my goodness, do that. I'm just coming up with, suggestions of people. It's easy to find people who want to work remotely, who want those flexible hours. and they actually find pure joy in doing those things. And I mean that they actually enjoy it. My travel schedule, my Calendly links, they look through my schedule and make sure that everything's booked just right so that nothing's overlapped and I'm making all my appointments and my travel plans are made. And it used to me, it used to sound, it really did sound like I was a diva and I was so embarrassed to spend the money, and it felt very frivolous and like, who am I? Who do I think I am? Type feeling.
Yeah.
When really what's funny is it was that paradigm shift of me being able to say, so if I get to allow other people to make an impact, make a living that they actually really enjoy and are grateful for, feel a part of a team, help them provide for their family, and at the same time, it's making me such a healthier, more joyful person, to where when I do get that time, I do, Sienna's right, I go prioritize my friends, or I go prioritize a conversation with you, which lights me up and brings me so much joy, right? So it's really like paying that price to be able to have that team to bring me more of life. You know, as you're working so hard to raise that ceiling of complexity, if you're not enjoying it and you're not enjoying the journey, I question then, was it worth it? So.
Right. Well, and you'll be happy to know that since we last talked and you talked to me about, you know, what does your support system look like at home? I've done some of those things, but I increased my, you know, the lady who comes and cleans our home to once a week. That has really, really been like awesome. Yeah. And I'm looking for, you know, and it was really funny last night. Mondays are our team day where, you know, Josh and I are both really busy. We have meetings all day with our team, and then our team on the whole works hybrid the rest of the time. And that's just been our business model for Studio 88, not anything that has to do with the pandemic or whatever. But on Monday nights, it's always been a challenge, you know, because we get home later and then we've got kids coming in with homework and sports and everything. What do we do for food? And you don't always want to do takeout or DoorDash or whatever. And we're super, you know, focused on eating allergy friendly and healthy. And I think I found a place now that I can get at least, you know, I'll start probably with 2 nights a week, like fresh organic meals delivered. And so I thought you would be proud of me because I'm listening.
I love it. I love it. Well, and what's crazy is like, how good are you going to feel to have that fresh organic meal?
Yeah.
Like you're going to feel good.
Right.
You're going to feel good about what you're giving your kiddos. And you're going to get to just enjoy that time. And I so commend you because it is kind of a hard mental shift. And, you know, I've heard all of the different excuses that people will give me as to why they don't want to do it. And a lot of times, you know, it's cloaked in some sort of money diva. I don't want to look like a diva. And I'm like, well, first, who's the audience of people thinking you're a diva, right? Who are these people? Like, is that even true?
Yeah.
And two, when it comes to not having the money, I'm like, is that really true too? Or is it just a choice? You know, it's probably just a choice, and we all choose what we spend money on or not. And so, you know, I think it's just such a valuable exercise to once again challenge all of those paradigms and decide if I want to do blank, you know, what am I willing to give up? And you can start with $25 an hour to delegate, and posting the ads pretty easy. It probably wasn't hard to find these people who do some of these services in your area.
Yeah. I know a part of your journey has been really taking the time to discover what your deepest needs are as a human and as a woman. And that has always really spoke to me, that I might not have all of my deepest needs. I might not have clarity on all of my deepest needs. And one thing I want you to speak to just for the, you know, next few minutes of the rest of this podcast really is tell us the difference between like a scarcity, abundance, and prosperity, like the definitions or the differences between those three. What do each of those mean to you?
Yeah, well, and I was listening to something, and you and I talked about this, that what struck me so pointedly, it was that often we never address, what does our soul deeply need? What do we want? And women especially are so scared. They'll sometimes make the move to move beyond a scarcity mindset, right? We've all heard about that, a fixed mindset. Most of us have read Carol Dweck's book of mindset, which is all about how we can move from being scarcity mindset, scared of everything. There's only a certain amount to go around. We can move from that to go to an abundant mindset. And I see a lot of people be able to make that shift, and they can live in abundance and they can feel good about it. But I was listening to something about, what if you really just sat with your soul and kind of thought about, what does your wildest prosperity look like? And what does that look like? And I've decided this isn't just a woman thing, it's men too, because I asked my doctors this as well. Like, what does your wildest dream life look like? What does prosperity look like? Because I don't know, but I'm sure it's, moving into midlife, it's like, I don't think I want to live in abundance. I want to live in prosperity, and defining what does that look like. And I've decided that it's really scary for women. And those paradigms are so strong that we'll allow ourselves the abundant mindset. Okay, we can change, and there's enough, and I can do this amount. Shattering even that ceiling to push into what prosperity can look like is scary, because prosperity, by the way, might look like having a team of support, growing your business to where you work yourself right out of the chair. You're not doing dentistry at all. You're the CEO. You're running this thing. You work only 3 days a week. You take vacations every other month. You know what I mean? Whatever prosperity looks like, it feels sometimes as if the words I can't, or I shouldn't, or those always pop into our heads. And instead it's like questioning every time. Well, why can't I? I don't let my team say that whenever they're like, well, I shouldn't, well, I can't. I'm like, no, you can. You can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. It's just all a choice, and recognizing in life, prosperity is all a choice. It's just what negotiables and season of life, and what are you willing to do and what are you not willing to do. But the problem is sometimes we just don't even allow ourselves to move to prosperity. We'll stay in abundance, and that feels good. Yeah. But what if there was prosperity and your soul could live there?
I love that, because you said, what does your wildest prosperity look like? I mean, come on, let's just speak to all the women listening to this podcast, which it's the majority of women listen, which is awesome. And all the guys, you can ask yourself this too, but how often, I mean, we don't ask ourselves that question. What does your wildest dreams or wildest prosperity look like? It's just not something that we step back and do. And, I think that truly living a life full of prosperity means we have to discover our deepest needs. That's an aspect of it. Once you discover your deepest needs, to me, that translates into significance and purpose, which is so vital to us thriving in this thing we call life. How should we, from your perspective and experience, go about discovering our deepest needs? How did you do it? Kind of lay the ground for that process? Because I'm sure it's a journey, right?
It is. And and that's hard, because I always joke, it's like defining the color purple or something, it's like, oh man. Well, and I think we sometimes can inadvertently overcomplicate it, because our brains sometimes want to layer the complexity so that we can be paralyzed by doing nothing. And so I think really it's truly, for me, I just define it by those 4 quadrants, more or less, which is, body, being, balance, business. What do you want? And by the way, I never stop with what do you want? Like body wise, what do I want? Okay. Sometimes we'll be like, well, I just want to be healthy. Okay. What does that really mean? What do you really want? Okay. And it's funny. I'm going to be completely transparent. I was like, I want to be able to put on a swimsuit and actually feel amazing in it. Okay. That's more what I really, really, really want. Okay. I want to be able to take this hiking trail for 2 hours and feel great at the end, right? So define what is prosperity, not just, I'd like to wear, whatever. I don't know. You
Yeah.
want to get really specific. What do you really, really want?
Yeah.
When it comes to being, whatever spirituality looks like, what is that really, what do you want? Because, I grew up in Christianity, and I've really defined what does my relationship with whatever people want to say, universe, higher power, God, what do I want that to look like for me? Not what I was taught, not what is it? What do I want spirituality to look like for myself first and foremost? And define, because by the way, I was taught it's this amount of quiet time, it's this amount of Bible reading, it's this amount. Well, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I love all of that, but what does it mean for me and what do I exactly want it to look like? Then I move into balance, which is just, it's just for an easy, acronym to have the B's, but balance really does mean those non-negotiables. So much of our conversation was based around what does that balance ideally in a prosperous life look like? Which, by the way, you can want it to be I work 2 clinical days or I only work this much, but like go for prosperity. Don't go for like I'd be fine with. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And then in business, what does in your wildest prosperity look like? And women often are like, gosh, if we could grow by like this much, if I could like make like this much, and I'm like, no, really, like if you could be really big and prosperous, what does this look like? And really list it all out of what is your deepest soul needs. And part of that is, those connections with people. Namely, if you have a significant other, that's part of that balance. What does that relationship look like in your wildest dreams? It's probably date nights that you go salsa dancing or you learn something new. But defining all of that, of what does like wildly prosperous mean for you, for your relationships, for your balance, for your business, for your body, all of that. What does it look like for prosperity, and defining it there? And then sit with that. And is that what I really, really, really want? Sit there for a while. And I do suggest, like, you need to be in silence. You need to probably go away. And for me, it is nature. Go away, go someplace where you don't have notifications and distractions. Because by the way, if you can use your phone, you will.
Yeah.
And I will say from my own experience doing this kind of stuff, because I really do reevaluate this pretty consistently, my natural tendency is to look at those and turn it into a to-do action list, start to think about other people, think about other things, somehow get out of that moment. So I purposely like to try to put myself in a position where I can't do anything else. I can't clean the house. I can't focus on my phone. I can't make a to-do list. So for me, it's reevaluating those areas consistently and making sure every quarter or so, am I in alignment with those? Is what I'm doing action-wise moving closer to that prosperity or further away?
Well, that's something that I told you recently, you had mentioned you've got to get away. You probably need to go, in order for me to experience silence and to have that, I'm going to have to go away, even if it's in town, or there's a really beautiful area called Hocking Hills. I love hiking. So I need to just probably go to a cabin by myself, and which Summer, I have never done in my life. I'm in my mid 40s, and I I would say I have clarity around probably the most major things, as far as like my deepest needs and values. That, values are incredibly important to me, but I need to really niche down on my non-negotiables, and then my personal deepest needs, body, being, balance, and business. And I know I'm not the only one that's been completely inspired by this conversation today. I think first up, we have to, in knowing ourselves and taking care of ourselves, that's how we're really going to make an impact on this world as women on the home front and in our businesses. It truly is. We have to stop and take the time for it. But Summer, before we go, can you just give our audience just a few last words on why it's worth moving towards, the prosperous life we are meant to live?
Yeah, well, I was listening to something when I was in Turks and Caicos, and I've heard this a million times about the number one regret of the dying is not living fully and with disregard to what other people say, but like living a life that's fully what they choose, what they want. Oh, like for me, it's like knowing that, I want to wring out every drop of what I know God has for me and for my kids and for the impact around me. And I just challenge women that I want that so much for every single woman to experience that level of joy, true joy, not just searching for happiness, but like a true, deep, unwavering joy in life, knowing the challenges come, things like that come, but they've defined it all based on their terms, with their needs, with who they are, and they're living that life just unabashedly in prosperity.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So
you couldn't have closed this out with better words than that. Dr. Summer Kassmel, thank you so much just for sharing your heart, your story, a part of your life with us today. It's been an honor for sure. If people want to stay in touch with you, what's the best place to do that? I know you're not the most active person on social. However, you are very active in the dental community. So yes. It's the best place for people to find you.
Yeah. I know it is funny. I'm like, don't try to friend me on Facebook, but which is great. It's all great. I just that's one of my non-negotiables. Yeah. I can't, but I do love the Dental Success Network. I run a women's group. So for all women doctors, Dental Success Network is a collective group of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doctors with lots of different rooms to learn things. And I run the Lady Leaders group of that. So Dental Success Network, and there is a 45-day free trial there. And then join the women's group and gain knowledge there throughout the whole platform. But, people are always welcome to just email me anything, which is just skassmel@gmail.com. I always tell people, give me a little bit of time to get back, but I'm always inspired to hear other people's stories and help people, in things if I can. So yeah, those are the best ways.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Summer, you are truly a gift to everyone who knows you and to the entire dental profession. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. I love you as a friend, and that's that's all the things.
Yeah. I know. We just have this like mutual, just such deep love. And I say the same thing about you. Like, I mean, every word of like, you are just the most beautiful light that I always just get to feel honored to kind of sit in that light around you and watch you grow and be so authentically transparent. Thank you for the gift that you give all of us by doing this. So.
Absolutely. Well, guys, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to this podcast. You could even leave a review if you enjoyed this episode and any of our other ones. I love this amazing tribe of people in dentistry willing to share their stories. Let's be fearless together, my dear friends, and we'll see you next time.